let's proceed with our second lecture from Ewelina Wyspiańska, Trojniarz as Scrum Master, and Maciej Trojniarz, Software Craftsmanship Journeyman, both from New Voice Media Company, both engaged in volunteering activities related with Agile, such as School of Agile or Wrocław Agile Development Conference. As you can clearly see, they share their passion for Agile methodologies, but actually quite recently they started sharing a bit more, as they just got married, and theoretically they shouldn't even be here, but they couldn't resist to postpone their honeymoon to attend this Code Dive conference and share their experience on how to work effectively being remote. Give it up for Ewelina and Maciej.
Hello everyone, it's a great pleasure to be here today with you. The reason why we decided to pick this topic, how to work effectively remote, is that it's some kind of story of our lives. I'm a Scrum Master for two teams that are working remote. And Maciek is a software developer who also has quite wide experience in working remote.
Yeah, so we are working in distributed teams. So even if the team is working from the office, but distributed one, you can treat the team as a remote as well, because you don't see your colleagues every day, basically.
Yes, so let's start our presentation. Any presentation isn't good without any statistics, so we also have some.
And of course, there is no presentation without the myths. So we all know this remote worker myth, that we are working from some kind of beach. We are laying with your laptop on your lap, seeing the beautiful lagoon. You have the cocktails, of course, with these straws. And you work everywhere you want, basically. So there was one of the surveys conducted in Poland, so it's not like worldwide, but Polish one. Remote work, I mean, the Polish title is Praca zdalna jestem na tak. So it was conducted 1 year ago. And what was surprise for me, that 81% of Polish people would love to decide for their working hours. And over half of the Polish population that took part in this survey wanted as well to work remotely. So the question for you guys, do you really want to work remote? Great. So this is a good place to be right now. Okay, so it's always like wonderful stories that you can work remote, do your job from everywhere in the world. So there is a couple of like preconditions. First, your employer needs to allow it. Second one, your work needs to allow it. I cannot imagine remote work in manufacturing because it would be quite challenging, I would say. You need to have a budget for it, because don't fool yourself. You cannot work from the beach with big, beautiful lagoon without budget. You could, but it's really hard, because you need to have a good internet connection. This is like one of the prerequisites. Because if you are remote, still you need to be in touch with your team, with your organization, and good internet connection is like must-have. You need to have a master degree in self-discipline, because nothing like prevents you from work effectively than the beautiful sun, beach sand, and beautiful lagoon. You need to have like strong self-discipline to work, really work this time. So the question to you guys was asked already: who wouldn't like to work in this manner? So we want you to answer a couple of questions.
Yes, so I'm curious, how many of you have ever have an opportunity to work in the remote team? What kind of advantages do you see? What do you like? What works for you? I'm happy to write those answers down.
So what are the pros of being remote? Anyone?
If you could raise your hand and then I approach with the microphone. Okay.
Less interruption from the group of people.
Less interruption. Yes, thank you.
Avoid the traffic.
Yes, thank you. Avoid the traffic.
I have one question in the other side of the room.
Okay.
Good, you keep me active. Who was raising his hand? No, okay. False one.
False premise. There is one there.
So this could be either pro or con. It's like work-life balance. It depends probably.
I haven't heard anyone stating that work-life balance can be a cons.
Yes, we have hand over there.
I see one of the advantages is you can work in underwear.
Okay, you can
I
work in underwear.
definitely need to write it down.
Or even naked, someone mentioned up there.
Yeah, sure. What more? Elastic
Thank
hours.
you.
Thanks.
We had avoided traffic. What about other costs? Yes, saving time.
You don't need to live near to the office. That's important. And you are not sitting in the open office. And you can clean your house in the meantime.
Okay, thank you very much. We have plenty of very nice examples of why we like working remote, working from home. And let's have a look at the other side of the story. I can imagine that you also have some not so pleasant experience with remote working. So if you could give some examples of all the cons.
So the hard part of the remote working. Interactions from the kids and family, yeah. And cats and dogs.
Kids, family, animals.
Higher requirements. Oh.
Right.
Working too much. Whoa. I think it's yours. Yeah, what more? Okay, and there was as well less social interactions in work, so you cannot go for a coffee. Sorry? Less office coffee? Okay. Sure. So communication with your team members is harder. It's difficult to make the difference between office and your house. Okay, so if you work with the hardware and something breaks, you need to wait longer time for it. Less access to rumors. So it's like kind of social as well. So less access to. You can add here in the brackets rumors as well. Sure?
Keep the business connection. Context could be. Okay.
So
Can you hear me? Yes, good.
So we see that there is more cons than pros. What a strange. And you all want to work remote anyway.
Okay, so normally in this time of the presentation, I'm sharing a small story of my colleague, of my team member, who is a software developer, lead developer in our team. And he has very nice passion, as you can see on the photo.
It's kite surfing.
Yes, it's kite surfing. And he works from different places in the world to have an opportunity to live his passion. So, for example, he worked with us from south of Spain, from north of Africa, and from Brazil, where we have quite big time differences. So, why I'm giving this example? One, it's possible. And we have very good example that it is working and that person is actually existing. And the second is that it demands from him very high level of self-motivation. Because, for example, when he was working from Brazil, based on the time differences, he needed to wake up around 4-5 a.m. his time to be able to work with us in the business hours and be woken up for our stand-up. But that could be sort of a pros, and cons is that after that time he had plenty of time to practice his passion. So I think that was quite good and quite nice for him.
Okay, so what works for this kind of remote teams that you don't see your colleagues day to day?
Yes, those are examples from my teams. So, for example, feedback. If you have a team that knows each other quite well, we try to spend with each other as much time as possible, giving real feedback. And I don't see any difference between positive and negative feedback, because still it's feedback. Our level of openness in our team is very high, so that also helps us to provide feedback. Punctuality, it's a result of the working agreements. Every time the new team member joins our team, we have working agreement session, which is sort of a contract that we all agree to some rules rules and behaviors that we want to have in our team, and they are expected. Engagement, if we know what to expect from each other, then it's also quite easier to give more from yourself. And orientation to goals. Every single sprint, we try to identify what is our actual goal for each 2 weeks. We have 2 week sprints. So it's way easier for us to identify what we exactly should focus on and what is the priority. Pair working, it also works well for us. Sometimes it's even a bit funny to observe when we have few people sitting in the office and they are constantly on a headset and they are speaking with somebody who is remote, and they treat each other like they actually be in the same room. Because, for example, when they don't even disconnect from the meeting, when they need to go for a glass of water, they just say, okay, I'll be back in 5 minutes, go back and continue working. And why those stuff works for us? Respect and trust needs to be on very high level in the team to make that good cooperation possible. And I also mentioned that teams are built. So in the beginning, when we have new team member, we need to go through all the phases. So perform. So we need to be really delicate with storming phase, and we try to always do it in person. So we try to put a team together and help them to understand each other better and have the proper team building. And trust, mentioned a few times by Łukasz in the previous presentation, which is like total basic for every single team to cooperate effectively.
And what are the pitfalls of it? What doesn't work?
Every magic comes with a price. Not everything works perfectly all the time. No, not always fairy tales, unicorns, and rainbows. We also have some issues from time to time, especially with the focus during the meetings. It's way easier to get yourself distracted during the remote meeting than in the, let's say, in a local one, because of all the messengers, emails, and so on. So we need to be more focused and more into the meeting. Different time zones, that could be an issue, especially when you need to, when you have a problem and you need to consult something with person who is in the different place in the world. But you can always ask the question, you can send message and even record a video with yourself to be more personal and to receive answer the next day.
With the different time zones, I have the perfect candidate. I've used to work in an investment bank when my delivery manager was from Chicago, so quite big time difference. So she was waking up at 4 a.m. her time just to call us in the middle of the day to check the progress. So it's possible, but it's really hard and requires a lot of the sacrifice of your time.
Internet connection and video conferences, I don't feel like that needs a comment. Distribution of information, and next point is communication gaps. So sometimes when we have a meeting and some team members are not present at that meeting, we can feel that there are some communication gaps, and we need to be more focused on sharing the knowledge and make sure that everyone in the team has the same level of knowledge. And there is also sort of a statistic that if you don't see each other with your teammates for longer than 3 months, you can experience loosening of interpersonal relationships. So that's very important to meet each other from time to time, if that's possible.
So another thing that was already mentioned by Łukasz on the previous prelection here was the 5 dysfunction of a team made by Patrick Lencioni, depends who pronounces his surname. It sounds different. So those are 5 levels. What can possibly go wrong with your team? And we could start with the top, but I am always start with the basics. So the trust, mentioned a couple of times. Absence of trust is the most dangerous disease of your team, because if the team members doesn't trust each other, they will encounter all of other problems and dysfunctions from the team. It takes time to build the trust, and you need to build it. It's really hard work to build the trust in remote teams. I know it from myself that I have the trust issues from time to time with my co-workers allocated in different locations. So these interpersonal, one-to-ones, some kind of pair working can help you with dealing with these trust issues. Because if you are pairing with someone, you know him a little better, you know how he works, he presents you how he thinks, so it's easier to get this connection between each other. So it's very important, especially in remote teams, to pair work a lot. The another level is a fear of conflict. Generally, people in their psychology likes that other will like them. So we are evolutionary biased to go into direction to not have the conflicts with the rest of the society, your colleagues, co-workers, because being together is the thing that keep us alive, as a popularity of the word. So fear of conflict is really hard to overcome. You need to be open. You need to disagree openly with your teammates. And again, the perfect way to do it is the pair working. You can always comment some code that maybe this is not the perfect solution, and it's a good start for overcoming this fear of conflict issues. The another level is that, okay, you are okay with disagreeing with your teammates, even the product owners or managers, whatever. But as a team, you are not committed to your work. So you don't really care about your work. You are just doing the tasks that have been told you to be done. And it's one of the key things in Agile, and especially in the Scrum, because commitment is one of the values behind the Scrum. So yeah, lack of the commitment can ruin your teamwork. Another level, if you are committed to your work, then there is this kind of level in the team that you avoid accountability, especially for, I don't know, maintenance tasks. You don't want to do it, so you avoid this accountability. It's not my responsibility, it is the responsibility of the team to do all of the things. But to be honest, each of the team members should be accountable for the work that they are doing and they co-workers are doing. So at the top of this pyramid is something that is not dangerous for the team, because team can live without it. But it's dangerous for your organization, companies, projects, whatever you call it. It's inattention to the results. So team can be very effective in doing things that are not impacting the business results, the results of your company, the goals of your company. And it's really important that even on the lowest level of the organization, you have the teams that really care about the results of the whole company. So those are those 5 dysfunctions that Łukasz have recommend to read. I've gone it through quick go with it, but I really recommend you as well to read the whole book. It's wonderful, and there are some exercises and tips how to avoid those, how to deal with those as well. So it's really important to read this book if you are dealing with remote teams, especially. Okay, so I was talking about that the pair working is really helping with overcoming those pyramids of dysfunctions. So how many of you have heard about dev pairing? Okay, I see that 1/3 of the audience have heard, or 1/3 had the strength to raise a hand. So why the dev pairing is great tool in the workplace? First of all, it helps you self-develop the team. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair point. So dev pairing is the technique that you are using with your teammates, that you are not working alone on some of the piece of functionality. It doesn't need to be a code, anything. So you are sitting with your pair, so your colleague from the team, and try to solve the challenge that you have. So either code together, either, I don't know, write automated test suite together, not by yourself. This enough of explanation about the pairing, how it's work. Yeah, this is pair programming. Yeah, the other name from XP is pair programming. But I wanted to enforce that it's between the devs. So yeah, you are spreading your skills and knowledge to other people, because if you are discussing during the pair working, dev pairing, your ideas, you share your skill, you share this knowledge. You are mitigating this introduction of accidental complexity, so the technical debt because first of all, not only you knows this part of the code because you work in pair, but as well you can have this another pair of eyes looking through the code and looks for the potentially accumulating this complexity, which is really bad for software, especially. You have the chance to discuss and decide on architecture and design details of your application. It doesn't need to be like high-level architecture because maybe this is like some kind of framework for you, but the design and architecture of smaller parts, which is as well really important. You have by bonus live code reviews. So if you work with pair, you don't need to really have another code review for the piece of code that you are doing because it's reviewed live, so continuously, which is a nice feature because you don't need then to review a lot of the code because you are reviewing one by line. You have the big set of the ideas during the pair working done properly, because if one developer is typing and the owner is not saying anything, you don't have these ideas. But if you are sharing these ideas, maybe the examples how to overcome some of the challenges, maybe the design patterns that you can use in the software, it's really important to share and verbalize those. And as well, you have the less coding mistakes, because from time to time it happens that you forget some kind of comparison, or you use the other way around the signs. So not less, but bigger, for example, or you forget some kind of exclamation mark to negate your logic and things like that. So you have the another pair of eyes to look for this kind of coding mistakes. I think that's everything from dev pairing. Do you can imagine the other ways of pairing? Come on. What kind of pairing you would see in the workplace? Yeah, you can divide the working on your unit test and code, divide it and work. Instead of dividing it, you can work together on it. And I have the perfect thing about the dev pairing. We were preparing the pretty basic stuff, crude stuff for some of the domain entities in our system, and we were doing this kind of pairing that one of the developers was writing the unit test, the other one was writing the code, and we were swapping every couple of minutes. So we were able to identify more examples that will go into the system. So, for example, the perfect example is like phone numbers, because we know phone numbers from Europe, especially from Poland, and the format of phone number from the Poland. But as we are developing the global product, there is 20 ways to provide your phone number. So we had to go and explore all of those, which was extremely painful for one developer. But if we focus on the two sides, like US market and European market, we were able to somehow figure out nice examples for both. But the one thing that I was really surprised when I first met the New Voice Media and the people from the New Voice Media before I started working there was the idea behind the dev and test pairing. So not the way that two devs working on the code together, but developer sits with the tester together over the code and develop it together. So things like they can came out with the examples for your tests, the new ways of testing the things because they have the different expertise. So it's really important to have like this diversity of the ideas when you are pairing. So dev and test pairing is like perfect example, because testers often have the different expertise. You can have the security tester that have completely different view on your system than the developer do. You can have the performance tester that will care about these performance issues. And during the implementation, you can include this feedback, so shorten up this feedback loop. You have the different perspective, because often developers write code to work, and testers test code to prove that they work correctly. This is almost the same, but not to the every piece. And of course, the thing that I really admire in the testers, they have much bigger attention to the results of your operations. Often, if you are just writing the code, if the code like passes happy paths or something like that, you're happy with it. And the testers often have this perspective of the end user, that they don't know the details, so they need to figure out the details. So they have this perspective of user experience as well. Because often, no, I don't think that I need to sorry, my English is not perfect today. So often we forget about that our users are not the developers. We often like these command line tools because those are perfect tools. Why you need some kind of explanation what's in the software? You should know it. But this user experience is really crucial in the global products, especially global products for the global market, because from different perspective, if you are work with Indian guys, they have the different perceive of your system than the European ones. So that is a great idea to have this tester, especially if he or she is from different background of the culture or the country. You have the more understanding in the team. So the famous war between the devs and testers needs to go away. This is my perfect goal for the software industry, to not fight between the devs and testers anymore. As I've mentioned it, we shorten up this feedback loop, so we have the quicker feedback loop. Before going into the staging or before going into the production, we have this phase that developer and tester work together and think about the system and how to improve the quality early in the process, not after a couple of hours or weeks after the coding. You are building the trust. All co-working, like if you pair working with someone, builds some level of trust. So you have it for free between devs and testers if you do dev-test pairing. You have, in the end, less bugs discovered in production, because most of them could be discovered during the implementation and resolved pretty quickly without all of the deployments. And I think that's all about the dev and test pairing. And there is a third technique, which is as well the pairing on your work, which is called Three Amigos. Anyone have heard about the term Three Amigos? I see 5 hands raised up. Okay, cool. So I hope that more of you will raise a hand next time. So Three Amigos is a technique that you have some kind of discussion between the tester, developer, so 2 perspectives that was mentioned before, and your product owner. So you have as well perspective from the business. It could be not product owner, but business analyst, for example. But someone that have the different perspective on the software and the product that you are building. It helps with building common understanding of the product, of the functionality, Then it's shortening up this phase that testers have questions how this should work, because we had this discussion before. It can help you detect early the specification issues, because often the specification is not thought through the whole of the scenario or all of the examples. It leaves some space for conversation about the requirements. So we avoid being the waterfall in agile framework, because we have this discussion about the requirements, and often developer can come up with the better solution for some issues, or the tester can have like, no, we cannot do it this way because it will be confusing for your users. And this is the perfect time to raise all of those concerns. So in the end, you capture additional requirements, more granular one. The perfect one are based on examples that you can use in the test automation, like behavior-driven development. So you have those three perspectives: tester, developer, and product owner. And then in the end, after finishing the story, after finishing implementation of this one, none of them will be surprised about the result, which is quite important, I would say.
Yes, and it's also worth to mention that this technique should be done in the beginning of working on every single story. So during the, let's say, story kickoff, we should organize that meeting to make sure that all three parties, three stakeholders of each story, each epic, each feature, or whatever we're doing, should be properly kicked off and understood by everyone in the same on the same level, in the same way.
It can be done as well in the plannings or product backlog groomings. It can be done during the stand-ups, like daily Scrum meetings. For example, my team is always on the daily Scrum. We just met someone that doesn't have the work to be done this day, doing this breakdown of the story, discussion, and we can go and work pretty fast without additional questions. It saves time as well in cooperation between developers and product owners. It's especially crucial if your product owner is not available whole day for you. So you have at least one place when you can discuss with product owner about the business requirements behind the stories.
Yes, so we spoke a lot about good cooperation between developers, testers, team as a whole. And now we would like to present you some small funny exercise to check how familiar you will be with those those situations. So exercise number 1. We will stand with Maciek back to back. We will put our blue screens on. And we will try to have a meeting. Start.
Hey.
Hey, hello.
Hey, do you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Good.
What is this meeting about?
Didn't we have an agenda in the invite?
I don't remember correctly.
And who is the organizer?
Yeah, we need to check this invite.
Okay. Do you know that anyone else is joining as well?
I hear only you, so maybe it's only you and me.
Okay. So maybe let's wait a few more minutes.
Yeah, sure. Let's wait.
Okay. I think that will be enough for the phase 1. Does that situation ring a bell to anyone?
Have you ever this kind of meeting? Every meeting is like that. Oh, that's not like good sign for your meetings. But what was like the setup of this meeting? Could you like refer to some kind of like remote meetings like that?
What was not working? What could we improve in the communication?
The
yes, that's for sure.
Yes. Purpose was not clear. I was not aware that if someone have connected already.
Okay, and how did you feel observing us when we stand back to back? Any observations? Okay, so maybe that will be easier if we start with exercise number 2. And now we will stand front to front. Ding dong. Hey.
Hey, Ewelina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's like nice conference.
Okay, that's fine. So what are your plans for later, after your speech?
After my speech, for sure, I will join the other lectures.
Mm-hmm. And are you about to stay for a networking phase?
Yeah, of course. I would love to see the people.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yay.
Is there any difference between those two? I've heard it. Video conference.
Yes, that was the main goal of this exercise, to show you the difference between meetings that we turn on our camera and the meetings without any camera, only with audio device. Yes, so for us...
What you can earn from turning on the videos? You can force the focus because you can see that someone is not interested in the meeting. Great. So you can read those non-verbal communication side of the communication.
And it's also easier to keep the sort of eye contact, even if you're remote, and to keep the same flow of thoughts and to observe if the second person that you're speaking to is actually still there, or that person is frozen, so probably have internet connection issues and so on. So it's way easier from the communication point of view.
And feels more natural because you see your audience.
Okay, time for third option. Hi everyone, how are you today?
Hello? Hey? Hey?
Hey? Can you hear me? Good. Can you hear me, Maciek?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly well, but I don't hear the audience. Could you speak louder to your microphones?
Who's standing closer to the mic?
Restart Skype. I don't think that it would help.
Are you having fun? Yay. Glad to hear that. Hey. Oh, hello?
You were about to say something?
Yep.
Yeah?
Hear me?
Yep. I think that we are losing the Ewelina.
Oh.
Or maybe it's me.
I'm dead. Okay, so what we tried to present this time?
Still no agenda. Yeah, we suck at meetings, you know.
So we tried, yeah. Yes, and from my experience, that's the worst case scenario. Even if we have 2 meeting rooms and 2 people in 2 meeting rooms in different locations, but they're connected, it still works better than if you have a meeting room and you only have few attendees who are remote. So, yes, we try to present what can possibly happen.
The connectivity problems that happens from time to time, that one of the participants is not hearing the others, or for example, the room is not set up properly, so we can't hear the audience, and we are the only one that hears together perfectly fine, but the other ones are disconnected from us.
Yes. So based on that, we wanted to present few tips of how to organize your remote meetings effectively. So first of all, always check your audio device first. So even though if you use the conference room, that's quite obvious. You need to check if everything is set up for remote attendees. But also, if you're joining any remote meeting, it's also nice to remember about it in the beginning of the meeting. Second thing, very important for me, it's a golden rule that even if you have only one person who is remote, we should all be remote to make that person be included as much as anyone else and feel involved. And it's also a matter of showing respect to that person. Conference room for 2 locations. So if we need to do a conference call between a few locations and it's possible to do it in the room, then always remember to book it in 2 places, not only in the one that, let's say, most of the fun is happening. Online tools instead of whiteboard, flip charts. I can imagine that it will be a bit controversial in Scrum Master's mouth, but if you have a situation when the meeting is taking place in the conference room and the rest of the audience, and let's say even few people in the audience will be remote, then if you start to make some notes or writing something on the flip chart and you don't have additional camera that is putting stream on what are you actually writing and doing, those people who are remote are going to feel totally disconnected and disengaged. So from my point of view, it doesn't make sense to even include them in the meeting if we don't want to actually include them. So I prefer and also recommend that to you to use online tools and make sure that everyone, both in the conference room and those who are remote, see the same view. One conversation at a time, special challenge when we have meetings in the room, because people quite often, especially if it's a hot topic, start to speak in the same time. So it's very challenging for the facilitator to keep the conversation on track and to make sure that people are not starting to have side conversations. Because for those who are remote, they only can hear voices which without any logical context, and it can be very, very distracting, and it looks like a bit of disrespect for those who are remote. Equal time to express the opinion. So make sure that everyone have a right to say, not only those who are the loudest. So please check if everyone who are actually attending the call have the same time and same right to say something, because maybe you can discover that somebody is no longer connected. Sound of silence, very poetical way of saying that, but I had that few times with my teams. Then if we change the topic, for example, no one started to say something. So I even started to count how many seconds I need to wait till finally somebody starts speaking. So that can tell you something. One, maybe you're not connected to internet, the obvious one. Second, the topic is not interesting. Third, maybe something in the conversation happened that you didn't catch, and there is a small conflict or misunderstanding, or people just didn't get your question. So that's also quite a valid thing. And breaks. My golden rule is that it doesn't matter if we have a meeting in the location or it's a remote meeting, you still should remember about breaks and have them after every single hour. It should be 5 or 10 minutes, and it always should be calculated in the meeting.
Some other golden tips for remote workings in the teams. So every possibility that you have to organize some kind of face-to-face integrations, going for a beer if someone can join you, it's like great opportunity to build those relationships, to not losing the connection with your teammates. At the beginning of forming the team, Ewelina was talking about it. We should have agreed the common rules and common principles on which our cooperation will be based on. It helps with the trust then, because we can trust that everyone should follow those rules, and we can point when someone is not following the rules as well, which is as well this overcoming the fear of conflict, to say someone, hey, we have agreed that we will be working in this way, why we are breaking this one. Regularity of the meetings, especially one-to-ones. Dev pairing, dev test pairing will help you with that, because you are forced then to meet with your peer and work together. Other perspective could be given by a Scrum Master.
Yes, especially with those one-to-ones. It's way easier for a Scrum Master who is sitting in one location with a team to build strong relationships with each team member. But if you have remote team members, you need to come up with something else. So, for example, I'm practicing regular catch-ups, one-to-ones or whatever we can call it, just to have a meeting, very informal conversation of, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? How's your family? And so on. So that will help you to build up good relationships also with team members that are remote.
And it helps with building the trust. So the trust is the key word in our presentation, to be honest, because this is the basics of the teamwork. So without the trust and respect for each of the team members, you will not have the team, but the bunch of people that happens to work on the same thing. And if you are successful with remote team working, it's really nice to share your tips and ways to work with the whole organization, because more and more people want to work remotely. So why not to share the best practices for it?
And as Łukasz said, we spoke a lot about remote meetings and good practices, because we all need to start from ourselves and then show good example that everyone else can follow.
And of course, remote work is not possible with the good communication and telecommunication tools and infrastructure as well. And it's really challenging to facilitate the remote meetings because it's not the natural way how the people are dealing with the day-to-day basis. Pair work as much as you can. It will have the benefits for your team, the quality of the software or hardware that you are doing, and increase these relationships inside the teams, because nothing like glue team together than the battle scars from the battles that you overcome together, not by your own. And of course, share your knowledge, share the responsibilities, so as well those painful tasks like, I don't know, SQL migration or some kind of refactorings, it should be shared between the team members to not allow to appear the silos inside the one team.
You can do it.
Yay! Okay, any question, thoughts, observation, opinions from you?
We have 8 minutes.
6.
Hello. So, question about pair programming. I did it, but I have one doubt about it every time. So, if two programmers work together, you have to pay roughly twice as much for the same functionality. Of course, bugs are instantly caught, knowledge is instantly shared, but during testing phase, bugs still will be caught, and knowledge will be shared during probably later stages. Okay, not instantly. Do you have any statistics, any accounting about this? Will it pay out finally? Thanks.
Okay, so from my perspective, it's not that you are spending twice as much time on the task. It's maybe 1.5 time on the task, because if you are doing it in pair, you don't have these blackouts in the mind, because two people think about the software, so you don't hit the end road like this. How is it in English? Dead end. Yeah, dead end. So it's easier to not fall into dead ends. There is one thing. If you detect the issue quicker, you are in the same context of development. You haven't switched to another task and you need to leave something and switch context, which is costly for our brains. So you have the quicker fixing of those bugs. This looks especially great on those charts that IBM have prepared, I suppose, that if you detect the bug early in the development, even in the design phase, it's cheaper to fix it than in the production. Couple times cheaper, even. So, yeah, and for me, it's like the perfect way to have this knowledge in the team, because most of our tasks are not like one-time task, but happens that the project goes with the similar task further with the development. So if more developers are aware how things are done in particular way, it's easier to maintain common standard of the coding, for example, which is as well beneficial for the projects.
Okay, I have a question about the tools. Do you know any tools which support the remote work in team?
Tools to facilitate meetings, or okay, so for example, Trello is quite a good tool. You can use real-time board if you need to do some more extensive sessions like story mapping, or you need to order the work, and you prefer to have some kind of post-its. So real-time board is very good. Of course, Jira works. Real-time whiteboard is also free online tool. Yeah, and
Fun retrospectives.
Fun retro.
I really like our communication tool, which is called Zoom, that allows you to have this wide video conference with sharing the screen. You can even give the control to your mouse and keyboard to the other pair, so you can pair programming remotely as well. We have done that a couple of times, and it works pretty okay with the good internet connection, of course.
So it depends what you want to achieve.
Hi, great presentation, first of all. And I've got a similar question about remote meetings. How in practice do you make sprint retrospection?
Using remote tools, for example, Fun Retro Board. So in general, my retro framework, if I can call it this way, is to have a look at the metrics that we have in Jira. So it's prepared every single sprint. Then we try to come back to our topics from the previous retrospective to make sure that we did our actions. And then I usually prepare Fun Retro or real-time board with different aspects that we should cover in this particular sprint because of some reason, because we faced an incident or anything that we should analyze, and then we are trying to do that real time and then discuss it.
And in my team, it's often that we are starting with this like review of the previous retrospective is like one of the point. The other point is like 5 minutes of silent writing. So you have these tools. It can be a Trello that everyone from the team can create their own topics. Then we are merging those topics because it's always that some of the topics are overlapping like pretty much, and then we are voting on the topics like on basic retrospective local one. But
Yes.
you need to remember about that. There is one conversation at a time. You need to speak one person at a time as well.
Yes, and you can also use many mind map tools, which are very helpful for a remote facilitation as well. There are Xmind and MindMoop, many of those, and many of them are also for free, so it's quite easy to use and it's quite beneficial.
Okay, and one final question here.
It's maybe not a question, more like a tip. You said that the tools for communication are very important, and we are working a long time already, and small tip that it's very, very important for both perspectives. First, as someone who is working remotely, even if you think I'm alone in the room, you still should have some headphones or something. It's making echo background. It's very important. For the office, it's very important to invest in all the hardware, like all the noise cancellations. But what you also show, video is important, and what we learn, like with one new stuff, what we just buy, it was cost. It was like $1,000, but what's very worth. It's something called 360 cameras with audio recognition. So you exactly know who is speaking. This is very important in the speaking if you are in some conference rooms as well. So you know who is speaking. Because very often if you have just camera, you don't know who is speaking, and this kind of stuff is helping a lot.
Yes, we couldn't wish for a better comment in the end. Thank you very much for that.